Hello everybody, Reggie Tam here, and in just a moment there's going to be quite a long video I've already recorded with a gentleman called Tim from Canada who plays 15L Snap. We're going to be looking at not too many of his hands, but we end up having quite a lot of discussion about most of them. We're going to be discussing his hands with our two very different perspectives. Tim is a very loose aggressive player. I'm a fucking nit. So you've got like two that players from different ends of the spectrum going to be discussing the hands, and I think I enjoyed the conversation with Tim. I hope you guys enjoy watching it back. I thought it was really good. I think it's one of the best videos I've done for a while in terms of how how interesting it's going to be. It's very long. Don't expect much just to watch it, but if you do watch it all, then I really hope you've enjoyed it. I haven't made the video now in like a week or so. I don't want to give too much of an intro into this because I just want you to enjoy the video with Tim. And we're doing a video probably on Thursday explaining why I'm probably going to be doing less videos. There been some changes to my life, some positive changes in my life, which is going to reduce the amount of poker I play through choice. I had a choice that I made the changes to my life and choice that I want to play less poker. But we'll get to that on Thursday in the video if we get around to making it. But for now, just enjoy the video with Tim, and please don't forget to add your comments, subscribe, all of those things. If you can smash the like button as soon as I've asked for it now, right at the start of the video, and especially you guys who are watching it very soon after it's been released, I believe that helps the videos do a bit better. So even if you hate me, or even if you think you might not like the video, just hit like anyway. It doesn't cost you anything, does it? And yeah, I hope you enjoy the video with Tim. It's coming up right now. Right, so here we are. We've got the aces. That's my sort of hand. I might be able to have some positive input in this one. So here we go. So we got.
I think my screen is actually only showing the one hand. Let me switch it. Sorry, one sec. I'm going to... Guess I can do this. Well, we'll start with the aces hand.
Yeah,
That's
fine. The first thing I've noticed is I really don't like your squeeze size. Somebody with your image who will no doubt be getting on a lot of fucking people's nerves. I think I don't like this squeeze size anyway. I think it's too small.
Yeah.
But
okay. Yeah.
with your image,
exactly,
even more so.
I think you're right. I think I could go as high as like 15 here and be fine.
Yeah.
The reason I did it small is these two, at least Atsiat, I didn't know him very well. I thought he would probably call more likely. And I'm in position. I wanted to keep people in it. But I definitely agree. I don't think there's any reason to go less than 10, but at least 10, but you could even go up as high as 15 here. So we get the fold, but then we get raised. Big blind. I'm curious what you think about that. This guy is very tight.
Yeah, he's a big nit, isn't he?
Massive nit, yeah.
So I just play all calls here. I don't do anything other. I literally just like pure calling.
I almost always will raise in this spot, but I do mix in some calls, and this time decided to go
I think if we jam, we're probably getting the money most of the time because I don't think someone like him is putting that much in to fold. But it's a fucking disaster if he folds queens, which this player could easily be capable of doing.
You think? It's funny to think. Like, I would never fold queens almost ever pre-flop. I can't remember the last time I did.
No, but if you think like you squeezed, he's put a massive cold 4-bet in, and you've said, I don't give a fuck, mate, I'm all in. You're literally repping just aces to most people. You know, I mean, ace kings, it'd be pretty punty with ace king. Kings, of course, would do it too. But I think ace king and queens is going to be probably the bottom of your range for doing it, I would imagine. You have zero bluffs. Literally, you have no one has any bluffs in that spot unless it's someone just punting. And I mean, we're going to have no problem. I mean, look at the SPR, it's already like less than 1.5. So we're going to have no problem getting the money in. There's no board we're going to give a fuck about. And I guess the king, queen, jack flop would kind of stink. But that could be it's so rare.
Even then, I'm gonna have trouble folding. I think.
Oh yeah,
against a regular nitty player like this, you could maybe find a fold sometimes, but
maybe you could. But I would never
try to get the money in.
Yeah, of course. I mean, hopefully he just bets. We just call and then get it in on the turn. Would be the ideal.
He does go for the check. I don't think I have to go crazy big here.
No, not at all.
What do you think about the sizing?
I think sizing's fine. I think we can even, because the SPR is so small, we can even consider checking back. Because if he has missed, then we don't mind him giving him one shot to catch up, or maybe
What
check
kind of hand
back.
would catch up in a way that I'd get money? Do you think?
Well, just and if he's squeezed like, I don't know, ace jack, ace queen, it's just something
Yeah,
that
yeah.
gives him a piece. So we just don't want him folding here, do we?
No.
I mean, it looks very much to me like he's either trapping or he's maybe got exactly pocket queens that doesn't like that flop.
Mhm.
But a lot of people will just like check their entire range here. I don't think you need to in this SPR, but yeah, I think we can check back because there's no problem getting the money in. If we check back and then he checks the turn, he's probably going to check fold anyway. But there's nothing stopping us just going like the size we've gone and then shoving the river. So I
Mhm.
don't think we lose any value by checking back. Maybe we
Interesting.
induce some spew from him once in a fucking blue moon.
Hey, it does happen. Even with regulars, sometimes they do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I find that when you check the flop and then bet the turn, they're even more likely to believe you sometimes in a spot like this where you re-raise before the flop. It's just a little fishy when you know, re-raise, call a big re-raise in position and then check. At least for me, because I almost always am betting that spot when check
Yeah.
two on the
If
flop.
I'm putting myself in his position and his stats, I'm a tiny bit looser than him and a tiny bit more aggressive, but we're kind of similar-ish players. If I had like jacks and queens here, I would be checking to you with the intention of just never folding
Yeah,
on this
right.
board
Calling down.
because you're pretty aggro, and I think you're like, you're just going to want to. I think someone like not you in particular, but players who play with your stats, I think are probably less inclined to fold in general.
Oh yeah, I
And
hate to fold.
yeah, so I'd probably be checking my entire range to you here. I'd be check raising my King X plus, and I'd probably just be stationing you with the other ones.
Right.
And if you checked back and I had say jacks or queens, I would probably just keep checking to you. And if he's taking a similar sort of strategy, then I guess you just have to bet because he's never going to bet his jacks or his queens against you, but he's going to have a
Right.
hard time folding against you because you're incredibly fucking annoying.
Fair point. He does just flat. Turn comes the nine of spades. I'm not really too concerned here about him having a flush.
No, it's very hard
Um,
for him to have a flush.
It's possible. I mean, he could have ace jack of spades or something. Even that's unlikely, but it's
Yeah, I mean,
possible.
ace,
But
queen
I'm
of
just,
spades, ace, jack of spades are literally the only flushes this guy's
yeah.
going to have in a
I'm much happier to
cold
see a
format
nine
pot.
of spades than I am to see any jack or any queen.
Absolutely, because he doesn't have a set of nines very often, does he?
No.
The question now is, do you just jam now, or do you just bet small again? I guess
I
that's.
think I jam every time with this SPR and in this spot.
See, I think I'd just gamble on a spade not coming off here personally. I'd just bet small again. I just want
Oh
to
yeah.
make it so he can't fold his queens and queens and jacks. 'Cause that's pretty much what I'm
Mm.
putting him on at this point. I'm putting him on queens and jacks and some like it's stupidly elaborate trap with top set.
Yeah.
And I think this makes him fall. If you got queens and jacks with a spade, maybe he doesn't. If he's got queens and jacks no spade, I think this makes him fold them. I think he's that nitty. And whereas
That's a
if
fair
I think
point.
I think we could just bet 20 or blinds and then just shove the river, just set up like 40% river and just hope a black one doesn't come. I'd be prepared to gamble a spade didn't come because I think he's in queens and jacks territory a lot here.
Yeah.
And when he has got those hands, I think he's very unlikely to call.
Yeah, I think, yeah, like I said, almost all the time here, I'm just going to be shoving this turn. I usually actually don't go for smaller bets on the turn and river, just because if I am bluffing, I am probably going to go for the stack here too. So I just try to keep it consistent with whether I have a bluff or whether I'm going for value.
It's hard for you to be bluffing here too, though. It's a cold
It
four
is.
bet pot. We don't have many like natural bluffs here either.
What was it, like 26, 27 big blinds?
I mean, we
before the
definitely
flop?
have
I
more.
can't imagine.
We have more flushes than he has for certain.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, 10 jack of spades or something.
We don't have many more sets than him. Guess maybe we have pocket sevens once in a while, but I very much doubt you're calling the cold four bet with sevens unless you're
Not
just
against that
feeling
player.
fruity.
No.
So I think like we have the advantage in pocket aces because if we're assuming we're never jamming them, we have all of them. We probably never have a set of kings because I guess pocket kings is the one hand that we probably do want to just shove pre. We don't really want to slow play that. I don't know. I would just bet small. I'd just gamble on a spade not coming. And if one did come,
Fair
I'd
enough.
probably check back or hope he didn't dunk on it or something.
Yeah.
Because I think this, I mean, as you're showing the hand, I'm guessing he's going to call. But I think a lot of the time this just gets too many folds, I think, from this player type.
Interesting. Yeah, maybe I do get more value from this player type with a smaller bet. But in any event, he does go for the call. And he
I don't know.
shows
Yeah,
the old top set.
yeah, that's just one of them things, isn't it? That one. That's
I think
just one
so.
of them things.
I think, I just in this hand pretty much had like the choice of how I wanted to lose my money. You know what I mean? Like there wasn't really any other way this was going to play out.
No, absolutely not. And no one's surprised to see him have kings there because
Nope.
he's an enormous nit and he's called 4-bet pre versus under the gun,
Yeah.
middle position and buttons. So yeah, he's always going to have a huge hand. But you know, he can have ace king too, can't he? So nothing you can do.
Do you think there's ever a realm of possibility where I play it like the way you played it? He calls and I check the river.
No, because we're always shoving the river. If we like, he
Okay.
calls a turn, and then he checks to us on the river. We don't like the jack because like the jack's just another hand of his that could have got there. But by
Yeah.
then we're going to have an SPR of like 0.4, and we're just going to want to put the money in
Mhm.
and just hope he's got
Interesting.
ace king, maybe king queen suited once in a blue moon.
Yeah.
But that's just like a very
Okay.
typical speed poker pot to me, where
Yeah.
you know it's just like a nits coolager. You know, like that's what I do to a lot of people. I just cooler people like you sometimes. Like you beat me up most of the time. You'll win 8 pots, I'll win 2, and I'm more likely to just cooler you in some way. And like you'll probably beat me long term, but you now and again you'll just run into my top set, and I'll feel like a fucking genius. You know, whereas you've done nothing wrong. It's just one of them things. I mean, this is what
I think
you run into this sort of thing all the time. People slow playing against you because you're so damn aggressive. People
Yeah.
will excessively slow play against you because not only will they want to do it because they're scared of you and they want to like try and discourage you from betting too often because they want to show you a lot of traps. There'll also be like
Mhm.
an ego thing too. They'll be fucking dying to trap you. They'll be dying to trap you more than most other people because they'll be sick to death of you. So I imagine you'll find people slow playing against you a lot more than I will against me
I
because
do, and I sort of sometimes pride myself on kind of having a sense for when they're doing it. Like I've checked back some pretty big hands against certain player types where it just feels like they have it here, and a lot of the times they do. But I also definitely find myself value owning myself quite often, where I go for big value with a somewhat top pair, top kicker kind of hand, and end up getting called down with the set or with the
yeah.
2 pair or stuff like that.
And that even happens to me who's a nit, you know, the amount of times that
Yeah.
I'm very confident I've got the best hand. And then no, then you're playing against somebody who hasn't found a raise with top 2 over 3 streets. He's just gone check call, check call, check call. And that's not because of my image. It's just because the way a lot of these, it's why people like me don't get past 50-0 and 25 and 50-0 because they're just too weak and too tight and they're scared of their own shadow. There's a lot of people in there. They maybe not even try to trap you. They're just terrified. Oh, I haven't got the nuts and this guy's being aggressive. I better just call. And there's lots of players like that, and it's what holds them back. It's certainly what holds me back. You know, fear of like losing big pots.
Yeah, and I guess I would consider that a strength, sometimes a weakness. The fact that I really don't mind if I get stacked. Like I've had sessions where I've lost like 7 buy-ins in like no time at all, and it's just like, oh well, maybe take a little break, but it's not the end of the world.
No, and to me, that the money's not an issue to me. I mean, I'm way overall for the games. I just fucking hate losing. I'm just a really, I mean, I've been a bad loser since I was about 7 or 8. You know, I've just always been pretty bad loser. I used to be pretty spiteful as well when I was younger. I'm not anymore. I was like, yeah, whatever. I'm like you, yeah, it happens.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't like the thought of like someone like
Somebody
you
beating you, or
getting one over me, like pulling my pants down or what have you. So yeah, so I understand where he's coming from with this, but how he, you know, I don't know, but I don't know how he checks. Yeah, we didn't check raise that flop against you because I know I certainly would. If I flop top set against you in a 4-bet pot, I wouldn't be putting a big raise in, but I'd be doing something just as much as anything else, just to like piss you off. You know, I'm gonna click it back to you, see if I can make you spew, see if I can annoy you. Even better, you know, even though I've got top set, I'd love it if I made you fold sometimes, not because because I want to win the hand, just because I know that's going to have pissed you off somewhat chronically when you've called a 4-bet and then you've been check raised. I know it's going to get under your skin, which might, improve my chance of getting paid in some other spots sometime. But yeah, generally, people like you are a nightmare for people like him because I'm a person like him, and you're a fucking nightmare.
Reggie, it's funny you mentioned that. Like, well, 2 things are funny. First, that you said you don't like losing, and yet you choose poker, a game where you lose. Everybody loses almost, every day sometimes. You choose that as your game of choice. Why not go
Um,
for something like chess where you should in theory win all the time when you're the better player?
well, there's no money in chess, is there?
True. Yeah.
There's
True.
money in. I mean, regardless of the fact that I am an old Nate, I still make money at the game. If I
Yeah.
didn't make money, I just wouldn't play. Simple as that. I wouldn't play for fun. I used to play
Mhm.
for fun. My story into poker was kind of like I used to just be a sports bettor, just gamble there, whatever. Wasn't really good at it. Didn't really care. Um, it was much my way. I didn't go nuts with it. I didn't lose more than I could afford to lose. And then I found poker, and then I was really shit for a couple of years, like everyone is. And then I
Mhm.
realised people are actually quite good at this and make money. And I've been making money at it since about 2007, and I still do now. And the minute I become a losing player is the minute I just stop playing. I wouldn't play it just for fun.
Right. Yeah.
But
I
but
guess
I
I probably would
accept
be.
losing's part of the game. I accept that I'm going to
Right.
have losing sessions. I don't like it.
Yep. No,
Um,
it stings.
yeah, and I don't tilt very much. It bugs me, it annoys me. And losing to a fish doesn't bother me. Genuinely doesn't bother me in the slightest. It's losing to
Mhm.
regs that bothers me because that brings out like me competitive salty side. Where a fish
Right.
just like sucks out on me, whatever. Genuinely, I
Yeah.
try and see it from their angle. I try and be pleased for them because if fish don't suck out now and again, then they'll just stop depositing.
Yeah.
So I try and
When we
take that
started
mindset.
when we started this session, this conversation, you mentioned that you want to start to play a little better against the more aggressive regulars, and I think that part of your maybe competitive mindset and just not wanting them to outplay you or whatever might actually hurt you in the long run. Whereas just playing really tight, steady, and not getting out of your comfort zone is probably what's going to keep you even or maybe even ahead against players like myself.
That's probably what I do. I don't mind being when I'm at tables on Sky and what have you. I don't mind knowing that oh, this player's better than me. I just stay out of their way most of the time. If I think someone's better
Yeah.
than me, I stay out of their way. The problem in speed poker is that you can't stay out of each other's way because
Mm. Mhm.
it just happens so often and so quick. Like on Sky, if I'm on a table and a really good player sits to my left, then another good player sits to my left. Unless the table's very good, I could just get up and leave and I don't have to
Yeah.
play that guy. Whereas
True.
I have to play you because you're turning up
But
at my tables, and
but it's also
you're
so cheap
unavoidable.
to fold. It's so cheap to fold. Like
Yeah,
I play against the same players you do. There are loose, aggressive players that I consider way better than myself at these games. I have them tagged as red, and anytime they're left of me, I'm not opening the 7-6 suited. I'm
yeah,
playing
I'm
much
very
more
much the
conservative
same.
against them.
You'll see in my videos,
Yeah,
I have most players tagged, and
yeah,
I open pretty tight unless there's people I want to play pots with still to act.
sure.
Then if you're in the way or something, then that's when I have to play against you with like the bottom of my range, if you will. But
Yeah,
if I look to my if I'm in the cutoff, I look to my left. There's two players like you and like a nitty fish in the big blind. I'm just like fine, just some of the hands that would be a standard open on most range charts because I know I'm going to be three bet too often,
yeah,
or I'm going to be out of position to someone who's probably better than me. I just don't bother with it. But that's why my VP ends up creeping down to being like 17, 18-ish. Whereas on
yeah,
Sky, my VPIP's up a lot higher because I'm more in control of the situation. If I've got a player or two players to my left that are really restricting the hands that I can open, then as soon as I'm aware of that situation, right, just come off this table. If you can't play the ranges you want to play under the conditions you want to play them, then don't be at the table. It's just not worth being at that table. But on speed poker, you can't help that. The table's delivered to you and you've got to play it. And you stay
sure.
in the pool because there's maybe 4 or 5 decent fish in there that you want to play with, and I've just got to negotiate you, and that's why on speed poker win rates are down at 3 and 4 bigs 100, maybe even lower,
Yeah,
because um, there's a lot more reg on reg violence because regs just can't control their environment in the same way.
yeah,
Well, you
yeah.
appear
I
to
guess
have
what I'm
lost your
saying is,
screen there, sir. By the way, if we could just
I'm gonna redo it here.
okay, okay.
I was just gonna say maybe in those scenarios it's better to tighten up even more.
Yeah, and that's
Like
typically what I
like
do.
instead of playing the lower end of your, play like the middle to higher end of your range against the more aggressive players.
You see my stats. If I tightened up anymore, I may as well turn my fucking computer off, sir. You know how I play.
I do, yeah, but I'm just saying even in those scenarios, I tend to tighten up to a considerable degree too. So you could as well, and I just think it's not that you're not losing much money by just folding,
No, of
even a
course not.
couple
No,
rounds
you
straight.
you,
It's
you may
so
be losing
small.
theoretically. You're losing a little bit of EV, and that's it. And I couldn't give a fuck about that.
A
To
little,
be
yeah, but you're
completely
gonna make
honest.
it back. you're going to make it back against those players that aren't as aggressive.
Right, next hand, Queen Jack. So we've opened
Yes.
middle
So
position.
Queen Jack off. This is it's five-handed, and the player in the big blind I consider to be pretty passive and tight. So I decided to go for the open here. It's mostly I would fold this hand a lot under the gun against a player or a table with a lot of good players, but I just feel like this is a fine open here.
Yeah, the guy in the big blind, you've got to see him as a fish. He's not playing a full stack. He's playing 30/14. You just have. I mean, that's a typical 15L fish, in my opinion. You know, it's you get the occasional proper whoppers, but otherwise, these are the guys that the regs are feeding off.
Yeah,
and you've got to be in there fighting for his big blind.
Yeah, I'm going to go after it for sure. We get a pretty nice flop, actually. I love flops like this. And when a flop like this comes up, there's only one thing I'm thinking. What do you think that is?
Well, I know your stats, so I know you're going to check a lot. Maybe not on this board because we have like the gut shot, the flush draw, etc. I'm interested more in what your sizing is going to be here because I know it's pretty standard. Well, I think this is pretty standard just to check this back on this board. 895. Okay. I think 895 monotone. I think it's a board where you're going to see a lot of good regulars just playing very, very passively. And
interesting.
I think I was watching Komodo Dragon Jesus. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's a pretty cool cash game streamer on Twitch. He's Canadian too. He's very, very chilled. And he was talking about these monotone flops, and he said you just encouraged to play them so passively with like your entire range. And I think we're supposed to either check here a lot or bet really small. But I wouldn't be surprised if you enjoy betting a little bit bigger against this player type because you think you got such an edge against him. But this board does not favour us in any shape or form, does it?
I love boards like this. I love when I have like equity basically. You know, overcards, draw, flush draw, straight draw, that kind of thing. I'm always thinking triple barrel in this situation. Like almost regardless of the run out, playing it very aggressively. Does set me up to get trapped. You know, especially against a passive player who isn't going to lead out with, you know, nines or a straight or something. But I just feel like most of the time, if I bet all three streets, I'm going to get a fold somewhere in there.
I'm interested to see what your size is going to be.
Always very small on monotone, so about a third. And we do get the call, and we get the 6. So, you know, that just makes more hands possible that he could fold. You know what I mean? Like I kind of like the 6 now.
See, I have the complete opposite attitude here. I think
I have a 7.
I think that's a really bad card for like our range.
Continuing to barrel.
He just has way more strong hands than we, in my opinion. Anyway, I mean, I get that you just want to blast against him. You think he's going to make him fold at some point, but I think in theory. This board's just really bad for us and incredibly good for him. Yeah, I guess we can have some 7x. We can have as many sets as he can have. I think he's going to have more 2 pairs. I think he's going to maybe have more straights. He's going to have more 7s than we are, I would imagine.
Yeah.
It just doesn't feel like a good board theoretically for us to blast off on, but I understand what you're saying against this player type. You feel you can just make them fold a lot. So I think this is where we're moving away from what's good in theory to you're just trying to exploit this particular player. You're moving into a pretty big exploit here. And if you think it's going to work, especially if you've got any like history with this player, any knowledge of him, then fine. I have absolutely no issue with people like massively deviating and going into exploit. I don't think this is a good board to do it on. Personally, I think we don't need to deviate this far. But if you think this guy's just going to fall for 3 streets, or you know maybe you're just going to hit gin on the river and be able to win an even bigger pot when we get there, I don't have a big issue with it. But I know a lot of the theory boys would just be like, no, we just check our entire range here, like almost pure.
Interesting, yeah. I think you're definitely right. He definitely has more 7s than I do in this spot. But I still think like the range of hands that he has, there's a lot of hands that just can't call a second barrel here. And it's just one of those situations where I feel like even if he calls, I might be good with a queen. I might be good with a jack. A heart, I'm almost certainly good. A 10, I'm almost certainly good.
So what do you expect him to do with 2 pair here? If he's got 8-5 or 5-6,
Yeah, I expect him to call, and then I still have some equity against a hand like that. There aren't a lot of hands. I'm not afraid of a re-raise. Obviously, I'm folding as soon as he puts any money in that regard. But
so when you bet here, what do you try to fold? What do you try to fold him off?
A 9, an 8, some sort of draw. That's basically it. something like a 9-10, 9-jack,
Yeah, I
ace
don't,
8, like some sort of
yeah,
random
ace eight. I
ace.
could see.
Even a hand like I guess he could have a hand like ace 10 with a heart or something like that.
Which doesn't fold, I don't think. This player
No,
type
probably
is
not. But
one. Like you mentioned, 9-10-2. I don't think nine. I don't think a pair in the straight. A pair in the straight draw is going to fold, even if it's only like a good shot.
top pair, maybe
I'd be
not.
surprised.
Yeah,
I
maybe
just
not.
think he's going to have a lot more calls. He's going to have folds. If he calls that flop, yeah, I get that the 7 gets there, so he's going to fold some of his flop calls. But
Mhm.
I'm maybe concerned that you're overthinking how many folds he's going to make because he's a bad player, and bad players don't fold correctly.
True. Yeah. As far as sizing here on the turn, I tend to go bigger for value. So likewise, I'm going to go bigger for a bluff.
That makes sense. If we are going to bet this turn, we want to be big betting because we're quite
Yeah, like if I
pretty
have a flush
polarized at this
here,
point. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. It's very polarized. If I have a flush here, I'm betting this size. Even if I have a set, I am still probably betting this
yeah,
with a set.
and we're going to be checking back quite a few strong hands here, and presuming that if we've got I don't
Yeah.
know pocket jacks through pocket kings, pocket aces, they're going to be checking at some frequency.
I
So
think I'd be
so
very
really
high
are,
frequency at
yeah, we're very
checking
polarized when we
jacks.
bet here, so it makes sense to bet pretty big. I think you can if you are going to have a betting strategy. I think you can even have overbet. Maybe.
Interesting. I don't mix in too many overbets in my play, although I did it against you and it bit me.
I don't
But
remember.
sometimes,
But if you've got that hand that when we can look at it, so I can like celebrate, it'd be nice.
we should look at that hand actually because it was an interesting hand, but I'd have to find it. We did get the fold. I was ready for the barrel on the river, but always nice when they fold the turn.
Certainly is.
I'll take it. So I gotta find a way to do this a little better. Maybe I can just share the screen. Like it makes me choose just one window, and I have all the different hands open.
So
So I
you've
have
got
to
them
do
all open in all in separate like replay windows rather than having them all
Yeah,
open one after the other. There's probably a way of
exactly.
doing it, but it's not a big deal.
Okay, it'll just be a little delay in between.
People who watch my streams are used to all kinds of technical fuck ups. This will be one of the more minor ones. I can promise you that.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so ace 10 here, folded to me. I'm in the cutoff. Obviously going to open almost any ace here. Like I might even open like an ace 5, ace 4 offsuit here. What's your range like in this kind of spot for opening?
It's not ace 5 and ace 4 off. I can promise you. I think
Yeah.
that's too loose in the cutoff. Ace 5 and ace 4 off.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm not familiar with super modern range charts, but I think you'd have a hard time finding like cash games no ante. I don't think you find too many range charts that are opening ace 4, ace 5 off from the cutoff. I've seen some range charts that aren't even opening like until ace 5 off from the button. Now they're not the sort of range charts you're going to go looking for. But I just think there's like we don't need to play that loose in
Okay.
100 blind
high rake
cash,
environment.
no ante, high rake. I just don't think we need to go down as. I mean, obviously ace 10's a super standard open, but I don't think we
Yeah.
need to be in the ace 5, ace 4 off territory.
Interesting. Like sometimes here I'm opening 10-7 off. Like I do like if it's folded to me and it's late position, I'm pretty much willing to open any connected cards. Like
Yeah,
there's not a lot of hands I'm
And
folding
even if
here.
they are like not good opens in like compared to most range charts, the small, they're relatively inexpensive, and it's what gets you your action in other spots because people get
That's
sick to
true.
fucking death of you.
Yeah, and again, it really depends on the player types.
Yeah, I mean, I
Like
look at you. If I look at someone who, because I've got like the raise first in and stuff. I look at that. If I look at someone who's like raising first in more than 35% from the cutoff, I'm looking to like 3-bet them pretty light because
Yeah.
I think most range charts have the cutoff opening about 30%. So the minute I see someone over a reasonable sample
Yeah.
plus over 30%, I'm looking to get after them.
I think that's exactly what you should be doing. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. And like similarly from the button, if people are opening more than say 50% from the button, I'm getting after them. And then you get some guys who are opening like 60-70% from the small blind, which is absolutely correct.
Yeah.
But there's just so few of those hands that they're going to defend correctly. Because if they're good enough to open and defend correctly at 70% blind versus blind, then they're not going to be playing 50 and L. You know, they're good,
Yeah.
if they're that well studied, they're going to be playing much higher. So I think there's a lot of guys who they take the most aggressive range shots they can find and use them, and then have no idea, get themselves in such a fucking mess post
Yeah.
flop. And that's probably why they end up playing as low as they do. But yeah, the ace 10 is, that's bog standard. But ace 7, ace 6, I think ace 9 is probably a standard open too, but it's pretty unplayable. In terms of like, what do you want to hit with it post flop? He doesn't have a lot of playability post flop. I'll fold like a lot of ace 9 off from that position, but I'd rather open a 9-6 suited than a just for its post flop playability. Even though we don't get as many folds pre, it's nice having the ace, because it blocks 3-bets, etc. I'd rather have, I know like ace 9's got a lot more raw equity than 9-6 suited, but I'd rather have a 9-6 suited or a 9-7 suited than an ace 9 off, just because of like how much more playability it gives us post flop. We can just be a lot more creative post flop with backdoor equity and stuff with the suited.
Yeah.
Then we can have.
I think it's less likely you're dominated too, right? Less likely they have one of your cards in a higher.
Because the ace 10, ace jack, it's not 3-betting very often in these games. But as far as I can see.
I do it. Like if
no,
like
you do
talked
because
about how
but you're an outlier. That most
I'm a little crazy.
there's a lot of rigs in these games that play as tight or even tighter than me. And when if you see, like I've like run like the whole pool stats in Hold'em Manager, and the pool's playing something like 25-18 with a 5% 3-bet. So if the whole pool on average is 3-betting 5%, ace jack ain't in there. Now people will have it time to time, etc. But I'd imagine most of the people in this pool are 3-betting pretty narrow and pretty depolarized. So ace jack's just going to be a call for them, or maybe even a fold, because you can't have a pool with those stats and also get to say at the same time that they're 3-betting wide. They're just not people like you are, and there's certain regs that are doing it, but the mass majority of regs, you'll see them for yourself. They've got 3-bets of like 5% or less. So if you're playing against a pool of regs who are mostly 3-betting 5% or less overall, I get that blind versus blind, they're going to have more 3-bets, etc. But they're not out of line. They're not even close to out of line. So you are right that if you open an ace 9, you are likely to be dominated by calling ranges at least some of the time.
Yeah, that's for sure. It's funny you mentioned like 3-betting more regularly against players who open too much. Players who do that to me, I tend to start 4-betting really liberally. So I'll take a hand like ace 10 off, ace jack off, any suited ace, and 4-bet at a fairly high frequency if I think they're 3-betting me light.
Yeah, I seem to remember a hand where you triggered the shit. I mean, I think I 5-bet shoved on you with some utter shit, and thankfully you folded. And it wasn't a good play. It wasn't founded in any theory whatsoever. It was founded, you're getting on my fucking nerves, mate.
What? You bluffed me? How could you?
Well, it wasn't bluff. It was just pure steaming tilt. but it worked. So go me. The problem is you can't show it because you fucked off, haven't you? It was 100% complete spew. But I just had enough. I was like, fuck you, it's going in. I think you maybe had an ace something. I was like, bollocks to you, mate, this goes in. And thankfully you folded. I don't think you made it easy. I don't think you folded too quickly. I'll try and find it. I'll try and find it and send it to you. It was just pure spew. It was just me really, really cross. It was just me being cross at you. That's all.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Yeah, like pretty much any time you play back at me, I'm usually thinking, okay, he's got to have it.
Yeah, and most of the time I will. But
yeah,
maybe 5 times in 100, you've just got on my nerves, and I'm like, I'm just fucking. Or maybe not even you. Maybe just the game's got on my nerves. Maybe I've been 3-bet 4 times in a row by people like you, and the 5th time I'm just ready to blow my fucking brains out, and you fuck off. I'm just jamming King 9 suited, have the fucking lot, mate. See what happens.
see what happens. Yeah. So the ace 10 is going to be a standard open here, 2.5x. We get the call from El Busto, who again, stats kind of indicate, like kind of standard, I guess, but the 3-bet's so low, I'm thinking he's not a very aggressive player. And anytime somebody just flats behind on the button, I'm usually going to continue betting range. I just see it as kind of a weak play. I don't know what you think about flatting on the button. I guess you do it with some suited aces and some pairs.
It depends on who's in the blind. I mean, I'd have a lot of flats on the button here against you with the 50/10 in the small blind and the 19 point, because I'm just never getting squeezed. These guys are just literally never going to squeeze. I want them in the pot. And if at the same time I get to like call with some stronger hands against you, then that's no bad thing either. Because I just get to post up with a stronger range and perhaps you'd put me on. So if I had queens here, for
Yeah.
example, that would be a standard 3-bet nearly all the time. But in this exact lineup, I might not. Because
I like it.
I
Yeah.
might just want to see a 9 high flop, and I might just want to, if one of these guys don't, just raise them and try and get the money in, or
Yeah.
if you're checking range multi-way, then you're gonna have a hard time putting me on a hand as strong as queen, and you might just calm me down a bit light. So not very often, but yeah, I probably would have with this exact setup. I don't think I'd have a 3-betting range. I think I'd just flat everything because of who's to go behind.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that is a pretty good way of doing it. Like I went through a phase where I just experimented with calling a lot with really strong hands on the button. And it actually worked out pretty well. I still think the standard and the thing you should be doing most of the time is 3-betting. But like you said, situationally, mixing in some calls,
Yeah.
it's a good way to exploit
You should
certain types of
always
players.
do something. I know, like you say, this is just a pure 3-bet, this is a pure whatever. But even then, I
Right.
don't think we should all. I think we should always have a little bit of everything, even if it's only at like really low frequencies. You might just maybe even
Yeah.
flatten aces here once in a while.
Sure. Yeah. Mix it in. It's important that you show up now and then with hands that are completely unexpected. So yeah, Augusto goes for the call here. Unfortunately, the two kind of fishy players fold, and we're heads up. And we get another of the kind of flops where, as soon as I see it, it's almost written in stone. I'm barreling all streets here. I can't imagine a time where I would ever check in this spot. Like I already have the initiative. He hasn't shown that much strength by calling. So, if he ends up with a set here or flopped a weird ass straight or something strange, then rest
Again,
in peace.
I
It
think
is what it is.
this is the spot where I think you're just supposed to check range. I think
Yeah,
in theory.
that's funny. Like, and that's what you said last time in theory too with the
Yeah,
queen
I
jack.
think when we're
And I
at a
look at it
position,
as a spot I'm always barreling.
yeah, I think when we're at a position, I watch a lot of Easty, not because I particularly like him. I think he's an obnoxious cunt, to be honest with you. But he sometimes has some good people on, especially when he has a player called Ben Badbeat on with him, who's like a
Yeah,
very,
that is great.
yeah, he is. He's a really good player, and he was constantly just berating him for betting out of position. He's like, just check everything, just check everything. He's like, oh, I want to build a pot. He's like, yeah, you can build a pot by check raising. So if
Oh,
someone
okay.
if
Yeah.
someone like Ben Badbeat's just saying just check everything when you're out of position, if it's good enough for me. I maybe won't do it if I'm really strong and I think my opponent's really bad.
Yeah.
But in most scenarios, I'm just checking and not really knowing why I'm doing it, other than someone who's a lot better than me has just said it's fine to do it at 100% frequency. And if someone a lot better than me saying it's fine, then I'll just fucking do it. I'll just do it and see what happens.
Yeah, fair enough. Maybe I need to do a little more study on out of position play, because when I see something like this, it's almost always a spot where I just think that I don't really see them withstanding 3 barrels of pressure with most hands, so I'm going for it.
I think a lot of your problem is they're just not encouraged to raise you at all. So if you see bet here, they're just encouraged to flat everything.
Yeah.
So that you can often get yourself in lots of trouble, because you can be like, oh, well, he's just called. But if he's just calling with everything, if he's calling with all these sets, calling with all these 2 pairs, calling with all these straights, you can often end up barreling off into like really strong ranges.
That's true. Yep. But we do it anyway. What the hell? So, almost always leading with 1/3 when it's a somewhat uncoordinated board. Not that this is uncoordinated, but there's no flush draw. I just don't see a need to barrel 75% as a bluff here. I can just start with a small bet. And again, that's probably what I do with 9s, 8s, 6s.
No, but I think in theory, if it's a spot where we're theoretically meant to be checking like a massive chunk of our range, I think when we do have bets, we should probably have bigger bets. This is where you're deviating. You're having a lot of bets here, so you need to have smaller bets because you're betting a lot. So I think
Right.
yeah, if you were like checking range most of the time, and this is a rare bet, I think you need to go bigger because your frequency is pretty low. So when your betting frequency is low, we tend to want to use bigger sizes, don't we? And when our frequency is high, we tend to want to use lower sizes. So theoretically, we shouldn't be betting very often here. So we should be using a big size. But because you're betting frequently here as part of your strategy, then you have to use smaller sizes.
That makes sense. Yeah. And we get the call. Not what we wanted to see, but I love the turn. That's just another card that he could be afraid of. I could have made a straight. I could have hit the queen. So if he had something like the ace-9 or the 9-10 or something like that, he probably doesn't love that card, though he probably does continue. Almost always here I'm going to continue with the 75% pot. And I'm sure you probably think this is another check spot. Maybe not after you've barreled, but
Nope.
like if you were playing this hand, you probably check, right? Flop and turn.
I might have check raise the flop.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So you
Because
check it, let them bet, and then
Because
raise.
yeah, I think people would just like auto stab a lot versus bets and just raise because we've got the gut shot, we've got like an overcard, etc. And obviously, if we hit a 7 on the turn, then we build a bigger pot for ourselves. If I checked here, I would be building some check raises in. Maybe not with like ace 10 off though. Maybe that would just be a call. But if I had like backdoor flush draws to go with my gut shot, I'd probably check raise. So if we had ace 10 of diamonds or spades or clubs, I'd be more inclined to check raise that one just because there's lots of turn cards we can just bet pretty big.
I'll have to think about this one a little bit because going for a check and then raising, like that is a chance to win the pot, which is nice. Like the reason I like to fire 3 barrels here is it gives me 3 chances to win, and it just puts the opponent in a lot of pressure. Even if they have 2 pair or something like that, it's still tough.
Yeah, well, I can speak from experience. When you're trying to trap someone like you, it's easy on the flop. You're loving it. You know, you've got your bottom set here, and you're just going to trap him. And then by the time the river comes and you go bet, 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 bottom set doesn't look very attractive a lot of the time. You've gone from absolutely loving your hand on the flop to by the time the river comes, you're shitting your pants and you just bluff catching with your set.
Yeah.
Against someone like you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd imagine you would get a lot of folds. Someone say you've got 9-8 here, and then the river comes Jack 5, 7, 10. You know, there's loads and loads of hands where his 9-8 would just completely shrivel on the river and be like a pure bluff catcher in a spot where you can just have a lot of stronger hands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, like I said, I like the queen. Decide to barrel again, and I do get the call. So now I'm a little skeptical. Like I could consider checking some rivers. And it's a 4, so it's a complete blank. I just decided in this scenario, I'm going to keep up with my story and bet pretty big here, like I would with a straight or a set or, even ace-queen here, I'm probably betting 75%. Yeah. And that's definitely, again, the same kind of thing I'll do is I will lead out of position with 2 overs, like ace-king, ace-queen.
It feels like a suicide. It feels like a suicide bluff to me, but at the same time, we do have a 10. Which, is reasonable, isn't it? It blocks his chances of having Jack 10 a little bit. Because you imagine he's only Jack 10s are the suited ones. So, we do block one combination of his nutted hands, I guess. But it's just like, is this guy going to fold 2 pair here on this exact run out? If he's flopped 9-8 or something like that, is he going to fold? I suspect not. But is he going to fold 9? A 9 that gets the river this way? Yeah, he's going to have a lot of 9-10, 9-7 suiteds. 6-7 suited. There's a lot of stuff here that he's going to call twice, but it's just going to have to fold the river. Like all pair plus straight draws, pair plus cut shot type things. They're all going to have to fold, aren't they?
Yeah.
If he's got some kind of 7x, that's going to have to fold too. Unless it's 10-7, of course.
Yeah, he could have like a 6-7, 8-7, something like that.
They're all going to have to fold, you would imagine. This feels unnecessary to me, but when you play the way you play, you're going to have to find these rivers. There's a disaster if you just give up here and he checks back fucking Jack 9.
Exactly.
It's a total disaster for you.
Yeah. And, part of it is I have to have some, like, how do I put this? I will be doing this for value if I flop top set, which is maybe not standard, just leading out 3 streets. So I need to have some bluffs here too. Does that make sense? Like I can't just always have the nuts when I lead out triple barreling. I have to also mix in some bluffs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Again, it's not a spot I would find myself in, which is why I'm interested in watching you, because you're just going to bring loads of spots I could never generate myself. So that's why it's really interesting for me. And I'm sure the people who watch my channel will find it interesting because all they ever get to see me do is reviewing hands where I either flop the nuts or river the nuts. It's
right.
Pretty much my standard fare.
Yeah, we definitely get into some strange spots, but yeah, I guess the style that I play is if I have the initiative, they haven't shown strength, I'm usually, unless I have a sense that they might be trapping, I'm usually just going to go for it all the way. And I got lucky this time he folded, but maybe not the most theoretically sound play, but sometimes it still gets the result that you want.
But it's still, look, again, speaking from my perspective, I see someone like yourself, and we've discussed that your C-bet isn't especially high.
Right.
So when you do C-bet, it'll show in my HUD that you barrel a lot. So again, me personally, I'm going to have a lot of slow plays against you because I know, right, once this guy bets, he normally at least double barrels and sometimes triple barrels too. So I'm going to have like more slow plays against you, and also a little bit more like, well, the guy only c bets 50% or something, so he's going to have a stronger. His flop range is stronger than a lot of people, but then because you're barreling turns and rivers, your turn river range then becomes a little bit weaker because you've got all the hands that you bluff the flop with that don't give up. So
Yeah.
flops, you've got a slightly stronger range, and then turns and rivers, I think your range gets relatively weak compared to most people's river betting ranges, because you tend to, once you bet, you don't stop betting. Whereas lots of people will bet more on the flop. They'll maybe have a 60 or 70% C bet, but then they'll drop off to 50 on the turn and maybe 30 on the river. And so against those guys, you're playing differently. Against you, I think once you decide, I'm calling this guy in the flop, unless the board changes dramatically, you're just going to cling on against you, because you are just going to get to rivers with spots like this where, sometimes you just got to call you with bottom pair. If I had I'd flattered you on the button here with 6-7, maybe I wouldn't fold to you, but I'd fold to almost everybody else at some point.
Interesting. Yeah, like if I think that I'm getting called here by a 6, an 8, or a 9, obviously I can't be doing this. But he and I don't have a huge sample sizing. Somebody who's a little more savvy like yourself, I might be more inclined just to bet once and then try to check it down.
Yeah, I'm not saying you're barreling all the time, and I don't remember your turn and river stats, so I was just thinking that if you had the way you played this hand, I imagine your C bet's going to be less than 50, but your turn and river's going to be like 60 plus. So against people with like a 60% river continuation bet, you've just got to cling on more against them, because it's an outlier compared to like most of the pool's river C bet stat.
Yeah. I think queue up the next one. I got to close it here for a sec. I'm going to show this one because I'm curious. Wait, I'm sure you won't approve of this, but I'm going to show it anyway. One sec.
Yeah, we've seen the result of this. We've seen the result of this one, I'm afraid.
Sorry, guys. Is it still worth going through, do you think? Or?
Well, it's harder for me to be objective.
Yeah.
Because I know that I've just seen the outcome.
Yeah. Okay, I'll skip this one then. Oh, this is a good one. Okay. 7-6 suited, you can see this one?
Yep.
All right. So we get an open from a very unknown player, the kind of player you probably shouldn't be bluffing, but it is what it is. So he opens 2.5x, and I am going to go for the 3-bet here with 7-6 suited. Go ahead, roast me.
No, not at all.
Okay, cool.
If we think he's a fish, then we want to try and get heads up against him. I have no problem with this in the slightest.
Awesome. Okay. So we do get heads up with the somewhat fishy player, we think, and we get a flush draw, which is a pretty nice result. Opponent checks. What do you think here about what would you do in this kind of spot?
Well, obviously we need to bluff.
Yeah, continue betting.
It's a matter of how do we. What's the most credible? What's the way we're going to like trick a fish the most, or somebody we think might be a fish the most? Are we going to just go small, and then just shove a lot of rivers because he's a fish and he small? If we go small twice, he arrives at the river with still a lot of hands that are going to be at a fold. Whereas if we go biggish, then I think the chances of our river both working are like significantly slimmer. So I would decide: do I want to like just bet twice here and give up if I miss, or am I tripling? And I'd make that decision before I decided what size to use on the flop. If I was just going to bet big twice and give up, I'd be fine. I wouldn't have a major issue with that. But if I thought, no, I'm going to, if I'd like you, someone who likes to, once they start, they want to empty the clip, I'd want to try and set the pot up so I still had a round about a pot size bet left on the river. So we can bet small on this flop. If we make our flush on the turn, we can adjust our plan and we can use a turn size that sets up less than pot on the river. And if we miss the turn, we can just size up the turn that leaves us with pot or even an overbet shove for the river. So I would definitely start with small here, and then turn my sizing against a fish would depend on whether I was setting up to bluff the river or setting up to value bet the river. So that would be my thought process on the flop, would be small with a view to sizing up on the turn if we hit and sizing down on the turn if we miss.
Interesting. Okay. I do go small. I go 1/3, and for some of the same reasons you mentioned, like setting up the pot in a way that I can shove the river and it makes sense. Also, I just don't think, like, to get a lot of hands here to fold, ace, some random suited ace that hasn't hit or whatever, I don't need to go for a big sizing. I can get a decent amount of folds with just a small bet.
Yeah, this bet folds out all his air. We
Yeah.
don't expect you to fold out even any kind of pair. I don't expect
No.
him to have much 3x. If he's got pocket fours, pocket fives here, he's not folding to this size, but he will absolutely fold it by the river unless he improves. So we're
Right.
not trying to make anything good fold at this point. We're just trying to collect dead money, put someone in the pot in case we hit, or
Yep.
continue to tell a credible line on later streets with our bluffs.
Exactly.
So I like it.
We do get the call. So as soon as I get that call, I'm thinking he probably has one of those hands you mentioned, like sevens, eights, something small like that. That all adds up with opening and then calling pre. Or maybe he has a queen or a 10.
Yeah, I think
I
when
guess
he
he could
calls,
also have king jack.
we just rule out. I think at this point we can rule out 2 pair plus, because I think a fish is not going to just check call a bet this small with 2 pair plus. They're going to see that board, they're going to shit the knickers, and they're going to want to raise and protect the hand. So if he's got like queen 10 or better, I think we're going to find out with the raise straight away. So when he calls,
Yeah.
I think you can definitely have some queen X that just doesn't want to raise 10x, and then he can have like the pocket pairs I talked about, and maybe like someone like ace jack, something like that. So he can still have some strongish hands in his range, but when he just calls, I very very much doubt he's nutted.
That's a really good point. It's something that I did recognize, but subconsciously, you know what I mean? Like I knew once he calls here, he doesn't have that strong of a hand, but I didn't know why. And I think what you said is exactly right. If he has queen 10, a set of 10s here, he is almost always raising.
Yeah, for sure.
In my position, let's say he does raise, and I'm able to put him on a very strong range. Do you continue with the flush draw?
It depends on his size. I
Say he makes it pretty small, like another 10 or
absolutely,
3x.
yeah. We just have to, because we know that he's got a strong hand, and if we hit a diamond on the turn, even though he's going to hate it, he's not going to be able to prevent himself from giving us the money.
Yeah,
because he's a fish.
Yeah, I think so too.
If he's got a set of 3s here and the turn's the 8 of diamonds, he's going to fucking hate his life. He's going to check call a pot size bet, and then he's going to check call the river. Because he's not going to fold his queen 10 or his set of 3s. He's going to know he's fucked, but he's not going to fold them because he's just not going to be able to do it.
It's too hard. On the turn, we get the offsuit 4, which I like. It gives me 3 more outs, right? I can hit an offsuit 5.
Yep.
We do get the check from the player. So yeah, here I am almost always going to go for the large sizing. Now, I've showed him on the flop, hey, this is my pot. He said, no, it's not. On the turn, I'm going to say, no, really. Fold your 7s, your 8s, even maybe your 10, because I have a good hand. I didn't go that big. Usually I would go 75 here. This time I go, I guess, a little over half.
So the thing is, even if he calls, though, we're still going to be like leaving like about 3/4 pot river, which I don't like. I'd prefer to have, just made this 10. I don't think the extra 5 buys us very much in terms of like the hand we're trying to make him fold, but it does allow us to shove the river for like a larger percentage of the pot.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. Maybe it does make more sense just to bet something like 10.
He calls
here.
There's going to be nearly 60 in the pot. He's going to have just over 40. So we're going to be shoving for like way less than pot on the river. Whereas if we bet 10, there's only going to be 47 in the pot, something like that.
Yeah.
And he's still going to have like a pot size bet left. And I don't think this extra 5 blinds buys us very much fold equity, and it reduces our ability to get folds on the river as well, I think, because I think he calls with a slightly stronger range against this than he does against 10. Not much, but a slightly stronger range, which is less likely to fold on the river. Whereas if we bet 10, he has maybe just 1 or 2 extra weaker hands in his range that calls to 10 that then are more inclined to fold the river. So I think sizing's really quite important here. And I think by betting 10, I think it gives us more chance of getting a fold at some point than betting this size does.
Yeah, that's a good point. I guess it does, on the flip side of that, just a counter argument, small point is if I do make the flush or the straight on the river, it makes it less likely I get paid.
Yeah, but
right? If I can.
the most likely event is we're going to miss the flush.
Absolutely.
we're going to
Yeah,
hit the flush 1 in 5, aren't we? We're going to be bluffing this
yeah,
river way more often than we're going to be value betting him.
that's true. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree. In retrospect, I think 1/3 here is a better sizing for this turn. And the reason I'm doing it in the moment is like I really want to make him fold those types of weaker hands. Do you think he maybe folds a 10 or 9s or something like that to a larger sizing? Like if I went even bigger?
Depends how big a fish he is, and we don't know that, do we?
True. Yeah, we really don't.
But I remember like years ago, I talking to quite a few players about this, and
Yeah.
they used to say, "I just never bluffed the river against fish," and it's because they weren't sizing the pot appropriately, and the sizes they were choosing were ensuring the river got like the villain got to the river with a stronger range, and I think this is a really good example of that. The sizes we choose absolutely manipulate the types of hands the villain gets to the river with, and the larger we bet, the stronger his range is going to be. So we don't want to like use larger bets so we get to the river with a stronger range, and then we have a smaller bluff size on the river because of the way we've managed the pot. And if
Yeah,
we've got
that's a great
smaller,
point.
he's got a slightly weaker range, and we've got more fold equity because we've got more big blinds we can fire at him. So I just prefer, like, my plan would have been use a bigger size on this turn if we'd made our hand, use a smaller size if we don't. So then it allows him to get to the river with, even if it's only 1 or 2 more hands, it makes a big difference long term. If we're always tripling, then I think against fish we have to be like pretty exploitative with our sizing. And I don't think this, in my opinion, does a good job of getting the fish to the river with the type of range we want to get him there with. I think we can get him there with an even weaker range with a slightly smaller bet.
Yeah, in retrospect, I agree 100%. Unfortunately, he does call. I would have liked a fold there, and we get probably the worst brick, a paired
Yeah.
3 on the river. But I mean, we have come this far. But you're right. Looking at it now, like he only has 43. There's 58 in there. It makes a bluff a lot less likely than if he had, 50 something. Like it was
Yeah.
basically a
Like I
full
said,
pot size.
if we'd have bet 10 on the turn, he'd have 48
Yeah.
and the pot would be
Yeah.
48. Because we'd have a pot size shove left rather than a 2/3 pot size shove. And I
Yeah,
think that's
way better.
significant. I think that's significant.
Yeah, I agree. He checks. I've come this far, and I have 7 high. Unfortunately, you could check if you really thought there's no chance he's ever going to fold.
I don't think we're getting him up a 10 here very often.
I think you're right.
Which is
But
kind of
we go for it anyway.
We're not targeting a queen. We are targeting 10x or worse here, aren't we, to fold, I guess.
Yes,
And
definitely 10x. Like I guess there is some hand. Like there's some small argument I think that could be made for betting really small here, just trying to get him to fold out King Jack or a flush draw.
Yeah.
Maybe. And I don't love it, but it's one way of thinking about the hand.
I think at this point we're spending too much money on this bluff because, like you said, the type of hand we're trying to make him fold, we don't need to put this much in. Now, if we're not trying to make him fold a 10 here, then we don't need to use his size.
Yeah.
We can probably just fucking bet 15, 16 bigs. Like you say, his ace jack, his king jack, all of them are going to fold. If you could bet like quarter pot here and they would fold. So if we're just trying to get him to fold a hand that's worse than 10x, it feels like we don't need to use his size.
Yeah. And he does make the call, much to my dismay. He didn't have the 5-2 or the 5-6, unfortunately. And he does pick up the pot.
Yeah, he was never going to fold that. I mean, maybe even if we take the line that I would have taken, maybe he still calls with that hand. I think we have a slightly better chance of getting it to fold, but not much. But we would have had a slightly better chance for the same amount of money spent, even if he only folds it, 5% or 10% of the time, whereas he called it 100% of the time the way you played it. It's a slightly higher EV, but this guy's probably not folding that hand, no matter how we structure our sizing down the streets.
Probably not, but like you said, there gives me a better chance, so I will be taking that into consideration in the future. And I also am just thinking, like, if this player is calling me with ace-10 in triple barrel spots, like, in the long run, he's probably going to be making some bad calls.
Oh yeah, you're gonna absolutely print money from him.
Yeah. I'm gonna have the ace-queen a lot. I'm gonna have the full house or the overpair a lot in this spot.
Yeah, of course. We're just not gonna have that many bluffs in this spot because this is one of the only bluffs that we likely are going to have like a flush draw. Most of the time, 3-bet pot, we're just going to have the aces, the kings, the queens, the fucking whatever. We're just going to, we're going to have the nuts a lot, which is why we're allowed to go bet, because we're just going to have a better hand than ace 10 a lot against a fish. I just think sizing's important. I think sizing is one of the biggest mistakes. Like, and I'm not saying you're a bad reg because I know you're not, but it's one of the biggest mistakes I see the bad regs on Sky making. They don't. They
Yeah.
just the way they like build the pot with different parts of their range because they're so keen to like. I just always want to use this size, and they're just
Yeah.
not keen enough to try and exploit. Just like I want to be consistent with my sizing, so I'm always going to do this, and that's fine against someone you're playing day in day out who's very good. But the majority of the players you're playing against aren't going to be that good, and I think we just need to be very cognizant of like what's the pot size going to be in every street for, and what size do I want it to be to achieve what I'm trying to achieve. And I think not enough players put enough thought into that, which I think reduces their edge against fish significantly.
Definitely. I think I didn't give it enough thought in this hand and probably don't in a lot of hands. And it's partially probably because, multi-tabling and playing a lot
Yeah,
of
of
hands,
course, yeah, just
not
auto
being able
parlay.
to focus.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'll be thinking about this one a lot more now and trying to set up the river shove a little better. I'm glad we looked at this hand. That's a lot to think about.
That was the most interesting hand so far.
Yeah. Gonna queue up one more here.
Yeah, we do one more. 'Cause my
Close
wife's
them.
just started putting food on, so I reckon
Okay.
we've got time for one more. But I'd certainly be interested in doing this again, where we're reviewing your hands because I think they're way more interesting than my hands. Because you've watched my hand review videos. It's an awful lot of aces, kings, queens, and ace king, isn't it? You brought every hand that just you haven't brought a premium yet, and I know people are going to way more enjoy this. And if you're enjoying doing it and even getting a tiny bit from it, then it's mutually beneficial. And as I said to you before we started recording, I'm struggling for motivation to make videos at the minute, so I'm going to be looking for more people to make them with. Because in conversation, I'd make videos 3 or 4 times a week, just do my own boring reviews, talking to myself. You're like, can't be asked. Whereas if you're talking to somebody else, it's always more interesting. It's definitely more interesting for the viewers too.
Yeah, I think so too, and I definitely enjoy doing this. I'd love to do it again. I though would like to look at some of your hands at some point, and I think one of the gaps in my play is the way I play big pairs. Like I think I'm not getting enough value in certain spots. Sometimes I'm stacking off in spots I probably shouldn't. So, looking at the way you play those types of hands and actually being able to ask you questions about them would be helpful for me too.
Yeah,
Even just a
absolutely.
couple now and then.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, do you think we have time for 2 if we go through them pretty quickly?
Yeah, we're fine.
I don't. If you
No,
have
my
to go,
wife. I always call her my current wife, and I act like an old bad 70s sitcom when I pretend to hate her, but she's a good lass. It'll be fine. if we go for another 20 minutes, it won't bother her.
if it does, tell her I really appreciate it. So we open here with the ace-2 suited. Pretty much always going to be opening
Yeah,
suited
of
ace
course.
here.
Yep.
We get the call from a reg who I consider to be pretty good.
Yeah,
I don't know what you think.
and I think he's pretty good too.
Yeah, somebody I generally try to avoid, but we get a really nice flop. Opponent goes for the check. I am almost always going to barrel here. Pretty large.
So I
in
don't
this
think we need to go
scenario.
that big there, to be honest with you.
No?
No.
Yeah, what do you, like a third would be fine, or
Yeah, I think
half?
it's like it's queen low. Fine, I get there's a flush draw out there, but it's a pretty dry flop apart from the flush draw. There's not
Yeah.
that many straight draws out there, although it's big blind, so I guess you can have quite a few. But it's a
True.
board that we're just going to see bet probably with a very high frequency. Excuse me. So I would just go small here. We don't care if it raises. We just have like a really easy call. So it's not like
Yeah.
we're worried about if we bet small, we might induce some like loose raises. Well, great. We've got like a steel wheel draw. We don't want him to raise, but we're certainly not faced by it if he does.
Yeah, that's funny you mentioned that because he does check raise a lot, and with pretty strong hands, like a pretty strong range.
Yeah, this is
So
a board
that
that
was
you-
part of my thought in going for the larger sizing was maybe he'll check raise less.
Well, no, I think that the more we put in, the more incentivized he is to raise because there's just more money out there for him to get after. And it's not the worst flop for a reg in the big blind. He's going to have 5-3 suited. He's going to have 4-6 suited. He's going to have some like wheel draws himself. He's going to have quite a lot of flush draws. He's going to have some backdoor flush draws. So I think against a good reg, we are going to get raised. Not loads on this board, but I think it's a sort of board in the past you wouldn't expect regs to raise him, but the way like the game's changed in the last 12 months.
Yeah.
I think these boards, regs just raise a lot more because they're aware that they have like a plethora of gut shots and open enders on this flop.
Yeah.
And they're going to want to check raise most of them.
Yep, and he does go for the 3x check raise, which I'm fine with. I don't think I don't think I need to shove here or
No, in the
put in the
olden
four
days,
bet.
when I was like winning lots of money, you could just rip it in
Yeah.
here and get called by worse. It was fucking beautiful. Um,
like the king high flush draw or something.
yeah, the fucking flush draws, or even maybe they would just call it off with one pair, and you'd be a slight mathematical favourite. You know,
Yeah.
against say a pair of eights here, for example, we're a small favourite, aren't we? Or if he's got like Queen 10, we're probably a absolute pure flip against that. And so you could just say, fuck it, I'm all in. I've got the nut flush draw and a gut shot. I'm all in. I can't be worse than a coin flip. In we go. I don't think you can do that now. Certainly not against good regs like this.
Yeah.
I think we just have a really easy call here.
Yeah. And I just go for the call. And we get it.
Oh man.
Yeah, doesn't happen often, but when it does, it's pretty sweet. Now, this player is a good player. He sees the heart come. If he has a weak hand, even a queen, he's going to check here all of the time. But he goes for the bet, and I'm just thinking, wow, he probably has the flush. Like, I don't think I need to raise here.
See,
can
I
probably
would
get it
take
all in
issue
on the
with what
river.
I wouldn't raise here either, but I would take issue with your reasons for it because he
Okay.
might barrel here a lot because he's just trying to represent the flush. You know, he's check raised the flop. A lot of his flop check raising range is going to contain flush draws. So I'd find it
Yeah.
pretty unlikely that he doesn't barrel here. And I think he should also barrel his sets here too. You know, he can't just.
Sets definitely, yeah. Sets like if it's a set of fives, I think he definitely barrels here.
Yeah, and I think he
I don't
should.
know. I could be wrong. It's just my read of this player is that he just never doesn't have it. In my experience, like he doesn't. Like he wouldn't lead out without a flush here was my thought, but
No, I think
maybe
he
I
can.
am setting myself to be exploited in that.
My wife's
line, I think.
my wife's just whispered to me. We've got half an hour. She's put tea on, so we got plenty of time
Oh.
for the hands you want, buddy. So
Beautiful.
it's excellent
Awesome.
stuff. No, I think he can absolutely have sets here. I think he can still be value
Yeah.
betting. I mean, it's getting thin if he's check raising like a 5-3, but he's big blind. He can have like Queen 5 suited, Queen 3 suited. Not at 100% frequency, maybe, but you can certainly have some of them. And I think he's got enough value here still. I think sets do this. I think his smaller flushes do this. I think the very rare two pairs he have still does this. It's a good reg. He's just not going to want to start check calling here. He's going to want to keep
Yeah.
betting. So I would just call it 100% frequency here. It's a bit of a shame because you know we're still pretty deep and we want to we want to be able to shove the river. So it's a shame, but I think racing just turns our hand face up, and we want him to continue value betting worse hands. So I would just call here and just obviously going to raise rivers. I'd actually like a board pair now. That I think that'd be the best river for us. Because I think he's going to bet all his flushes even if the board pairs, but he's also going to give him full houses. And I think it's quite nice
Then
when
you're
our
definitely
opponent,
getting the
when our
stack,
opponent has a
you
full
feel.
house and we've got a straight flush. It's beautiful, isn't it? So I'd much rather the board paired there, but it didn't.
Yeah.
I imagine
Right,
he's going to
yeah.
block or he's going to check. I would imagine most of the time. Half pot. That's an
He goes for
interesting
half
size.
pot.
That's a very. I mean, that might be good because I agree with you. I think this guy's a good player. It's not something I expected to see, and I don't.
Yeah.
I expect most of the time here because I listen to a lot of like good players. I don't always like understand what they're saying and the reasons why they're saying it, but I hear them say a lot here. You either want to block or go big. So I'm very surprised to see the half pot. It's
Yeah.
just it seems like a spot where someone's going to go really small or really big. Now we don't expect him to go really big because we've got the nuts. So you know he can't
Right.
have the nuts. So I would expect to see block there. But I mean we just have a shove now anyway, don't we?
Oh yeah.
And just hope he finds a call with something.
Just hoping he has a flush, and he calls, and he pretty reasonably had the Queen 6 of hearts.
Yeah. That was a shame for him, wasn't it? Because he sees that flop. But at least it proves on the turn when we talk about how he can have like some two pairs with the queen. We now know that he does defend that, and he should defend those hands too. I don't defend them very often because I'm not good enough to, but I know that the hands like that are completely standard. I mean, this hand is just totally standard from both players, but it wouldn't be if it was me because I wouldn't be defending the queen 6 against someone like you because you're just going to outplay me too often. So that's the sort of talked about earlier. I would just be folding it. I don't give a shit. Fine, you're stealing a little bit of EV from me. Couldn't give a shit. Have it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think from both players' point of view, this is. I mean, you could argue he could just check. He can just check call the flop. He's blocking top pair. He's blocking flush draws. So theoretically, you're going to have far fewer calls versus his raises.
Yeah.
So maybe he doesn't have to check resist flop exactly. But again, obviously, there's nothing wrong when you've got top player and a flush draw against someone like you who's very aggressive. So I think it's standard from both things. I'm just surprised he chose a half pot. I thought maybe he would have gone bigger with that because he's basically sat in there with like, I know the straight flushes out there, but he sat there with the
Yeah.
third nuts. And your range isn't going to be all nut flushes. Your range is going to be a lot smaller flushes too, and some sets and
definitely.
things. So I'm surprised he went with half pot because I think he misses some value against you with half pot.
Well, I think maybe he's thinking with a queen, like he's probably putting me on, like I'm a pretty sticky player. There's a pretty good chance here I am just calling him down with something like a queen. So maybe he's thinking, if I go 3/4, 2/3, he's going to fold the
Yeah,
top pair,
fair
whereas
enough.
if I go half pot, he's at a higher frequency going to call with kind of that marginal type
Yeah, I
hand.
guess if he's targeting Queen X as well, then yeah, I guess he does need to go small. I just think half pot's an odd size. It's not a size I'm used to
Yeah.
seeing, and it's not a size I'm used to hearing good players advocating, which is why I was surprised to see it.
I used to, until actually very recently, go for a lot of half pot. It was kind of like my blanket when I wasn't sure what to do, half pot. More recently, I've been going for almost always 3/4 on the turn and river, especially for value against weaker players.
And one of my favourite people in the world who I don't know is a player called Juicenberg. He used to stream Sky Poker tournaments on a Monday night, and he used half pot that often. He even created like one of his Twitch emojis with a half pot button because we took the piss out of him so often for using it. And he knew it was a bad play, but again, it's just an easy autopilot size to use, isn't it? It's a bit blocky, and it's just not as blocky as like 40% or 1/3. I guess if that's the size he's using to block with, then that's the size he's using to block with. I would suspect he's probably got some smaller sizes too, though, if he's a good player, like we think he is.
Yeah, I just find that, like, I've looked at some hand analysis where I've bet half pot, and I've just found, like, if I bet 3/4 here, I was getting called, and it just snowballs the pot that much more.
Sorry, I misunderstood what you meant there.
Oh, sorry. Like if you go for the larger sizing, it snowballs the pot quicker. And I just found, like in looking at some of the analysis, they were going to call me whether I bet half or 3/4. So why not just for value go for it?
Yeah, against fish, I will always just be like, right, what's my standard size here? Am I value betting? Yeah, then in that case, let's put a bit on. Am I bluffing? Yep, and let's just take a little bit off then. And that's the kind of how I try to exploit against fish. It's just like, what's my standard? And then if I'm value betting, I go a bit bigger. If I'm bluffing, I go a bit smaller because I just don't expect them to pick up on it because it's a relatively subtle difference that makes a huge difference to your win rate long term.
Definitely, yep. Here's a hand you can probably relate to pretty well.
Oh, cool! We've got a real hand. We've got a proper hand at
this-
last. None of this bullshit unpaired stuff.
Yeah, what's going on here? Ace 2. What are you doing?
Absolute fucking nonsense.
So we fold pre. Go for the standard open. We get a call. I'm just going to move these out of the way 1 sec.
We get a call from a reasonable fish.
Yeah, reasonable fish, and then a pretty nitty reg.
I'm very familiar with Nero. He's not good. He is incredibly nitty.
Yeah, I've looked at my overall against him, and I'm up quite a bit.
Yeah, I never used to like him, but he's from the Ukraine, so now I just like, good on you, mate. Just good luck to you. And let's not have you have anything bad happen to you. And like, I'm surprised people from Ukraine are still playing it. I would have thought like trying to focus on playing poker whilst your country's in a raging war would be difficult. But fair play to them. I'm glad he's still able to play and he's not been massively inconvenienced. Yeah, but he is. He's a nit. A lot of Ukrainian players are super nits, and he's even nittier than me.
Really? Yeah,
definitely.
I should have taken that into consideration, but I didn't. So he checks.
I like it when you said really there. When I said nitty me up really, you said, "What? Anyone's nittier than you, Reg? Fuck off." You said really there, like being nittier than me was fucking impossible.
I didn't know it was possible. Is that possible?
Nero manages it.
Yeah, I guess he does. I didn't like up until recently. I didn't realize quite how nitty he was. Like quite how few hands he played. It's hard in Snap to keep track of all that.
Well, not when you've got a hood with 3K hands on someone saying they're playing 16-12, it isn't.
True. That does make it a little more apparent, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I'm happy to like have a little bit of latitude with how you interpret things, but I'm calling out bullshit when you say it's hard to notice a nit over 3K hands that's playing 16-12. I'm afraid that's pure bullshit. You just have, if you're not noticing that, then you may as well not have your hood running.
Yeah, something's wrong. What do you think about this board though? Once I'm checked to once, do
I
you go
think
for a little bit of value here?
no, I check 100% here and hope Rohan bets or Rotan bets, and I just raise him. It's not a board that I'm
Interesting.
going to want to. Well, it is a board we could try and bet 3 streets on, but again, it's just one of them situations. It's a multi-way pot. We're supposed to play relatively passively, especially if we're not closing the action, and it's just it's just nice to have some check raises. I think the issue with your strategy is you can't have many check raises in it, which
I don't check raise.
once
Like
you
I
check makes
practically
you
never do.
pretty exploitable once you check.
Mhm.
So this is a spot again where I would just check 100%. If Rotan doesn't bet, then I'm just betting big turn and river.
Interesting. I think I do need to work in a lot more check raises because I'm pretty much all. If I have an overpair to the board, my strategy is almost always barrel. Like I don't check often at all. And the
Well,
thought is like I want to get 3 streets of value here.
yeah, but again, also if just say Rotan who's got like a I don't know Jack Queen, Jack 10, Jack King, Jack Ace,
Yeah.
you're going to be able to get all the money on the flop against him before the board gets really shitty. Imagine you bet here,
Mm.
he calls, and any card between a 7 and a queen rolls off that's a red or a red one. There's a lot
Yeah.
of cards which fine you might still have the best time, but you're either going to find it harder to get value, or they'll improve past you in a way that it's not obviously noticeable.
Definitely true.
Like
Is there some argument, like, because in my thought process, I'm always thinking, oh, there's a flush draw, straight draw, all that stuff's possible. I need to get some value in now against those types of hands.
well, yeah, but if they've got them and they get
Mhm.
checked to, they might bet them anyway, and then you just get to raise them
Yeah.
against them and just get more value from them that way. It's
True.
like the same like the argument I told you earlier when Eastie was like when Ben Abadbeat was imploring him to check more, and he was like, "No, I
Yeah.
just want to get value now." He's like, "When you get value with the check raise, yeah, you don't get to do it as often, but when you do get to do it, you're building a really big pot really quickly. So there's
Yeah.
like anything with poker, there's pros and cons to it, but I just think we're meant to check really high frequency multi-way. I just think we're meant to check a lot, and then because we're checking a lot, we get to do a bit more raising, don't we?
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm going to have to work that into my play a little more, especially out of position, like you said, to just maybe stop donking so much and mix in some checks and check raises when I get the
But
opportunity.
it's not a donk bet, is it? Because we're the pre-flop raiser.
Right.
But
Right.
I think if we're in position here, we absolutely bet this flop. But when we're out of
Mhm.
position, and it also has a benefit of just say we check here, Rotarius bets pot, and then this fucking massive nit in the big blind check raises. We have a legitimate opportunity to fold our kings then, because this nit in the
Yeah.
big blind is not going to be check raising worse than a pair of kings here.
Yeah.
He's just going to be check calling worse than kings and check raising, sets. And if he does check, maybe the only check raise he has is maybe he check raises ace jack against the fish. So but most of the time we just get the information on like where's Nero at. If we check that Rotan guy bets and Nero calls, then we're always ahead of Nero and we're likely ahead of Rotan, and we've got a good chance of getting called in 1 or 2 spots. If we check Rotan bets say 6 bigs and Nero makes it 28 bigs, we can probably just fold our kings, I would imagine. Which
Yeah.
I don't think you would ever do, because for you in your spot with your image, pocket kings is maybe too big a hand to fold with your image. I don't know, but if I checked here and it went bet raise, I'd strongly consider folding. Well, I'm not sure that's in like it's not in your way of playing, and that's not a criticism. It's just we approach the game very differently, don't we? You play a lot more high
Absolutely.
variance style than me, but I like checking here because it doesn't prevent us raising, and it also, for now and again, when we are just fucked by one or both of them, it allows us to get away like really cheaply if we're that way inclined, which I think I am way more than you are.
Yeah. I like the way that you're thinking about playing this hand better than the way I think about it. I do lead out for half pot.
I think if we are going to bet here multi-way, we should just bet big.
Okay. Yep. That makes sense too. And we get
Uh-oh.
a warning sign.
Yeah. We're in trouble. I'm not saying we're beat, but we're in trouble. That he's going to have sets here almost always, and when he doesn't, he's just going to have a pretty big combo draw like 10-9 of hearts. He isn't doing this with ace jack. This guy,
Interesting. Okay.
even if he is, fine. He's got like a few combos of that, but he's got every combo. He's got every set because he probably doesn't 3-bet jacks pre because he's a moron. So he's got every set. He's got maybe he's got jack 8 suited. Maybe he's got 8-6 suited. He's got all the combo draws. Yeah,
Yeah.
and like Ace Jack is like the only value that we beat, and I don't even think he does this with Ace Jack at like 100% frequency, not even close.
Yeah. So in this scenario, are you considering a fold?
Um, I'm considering it, but I haven't got the fucking discipline to do it.
Fair enough. Neither do I. So I do go for the call. And the turn is as blank as a blank can be. And he's going to lead out here for 2/3 or whatever that is.
Well, all we can do is just go call again. You know, raising achieves nothing.
No.
It makes him fold the rare occasions of nonsense. I think we just make a decision here. I think we just call, and if a red one comes in and shoves, we just have to fold because we don't beat anything at all then.
Definitely.
Either call and then just call on bricks and hope he's got the 10-9 of hearts or 10-9 of diamonds. But it's a really rough spot because we've been check raised and barreled against somebody who barely puts a chip in the pot without the nuts, and it's a shit spot
Yeah.
to be in. It's a really shit spot. But you know, our hands are a little bit under reps. I guess we only bet half pot on the flop.
Yeah.
Maybe he would expect people to like 3-bet with their aces and kings and things and not call. Depends what level he's thinking on.
Mhm.
I mean, if he knows you can have aces and kings here and he's still doing this, we're fucked. If he doesn't put you on them anymore, then maybe we're not fucked. But it's a grim spot
Yeah.
because we've been check raised and bombed into by a fucking huge net. Our hands it's a pure bluff catcher at this point. It's nothing else.
Really is. And is there an argument for the fact that like there's no value to calling here because if he misses, he's just folding? Like if he has the 9-10 of hearts, I'm never getting like he's never all in on the river. I don't think.
No, I don't think
as
he
a
is.
bluff.
I think with this guy got the 9-10 of hearts, I think when you call twice, he does not fire the river. But because he
I
can
think so,
have
too.
that, you know, I guess we just need to call and then just fold river if he shoves.
Okay.
But it's just grim. I mean, I think probably against this guy's just fold the flop, but no
Yeah.
one's doing that, not even me. I want to, but I'm not doing it.
Yeah. And another brick on the river.
Well, it's not the worst
And
river because now we're ahead of Jack 8 and 8-6 all of a sudden. But does he then
That's
shove
true.
Jack 8 and 8-6? I don't think he
Probably
does.
not.
Don't
Probably
think
not.
he does.
So it's just one of those scenarios where as soon as this happens, I'm thinking I'm dead here. There's no way I'm good. But I've made it this far. I don't
Yeah.
have the discipline to follow.
I
You know what I
think
mean?
this
Like
line, even versus non-nits, is just really strong. You know,
Yeah.
check raise, bet turn, shove river. It's almost always a fucking set. It's predictable. It's boring. But the thing is, and you'll know this as well as I do, the times this isn't a set makes you sit up in your chair. You're like, wow, fucking hell. You know, because you just
Yeah.
expect him to show you a set here nearly or a full house now as it is. So the times it isn't, it's a massive surprise. So I think
Yes.
we can probably just fold the flop. But I think once we decide not to fold the flop, we probably shouldn't be folding this run out. I think if we're going to find a fold, the flop's probably the time to do it.
So you mentioned earlier Ace Jack. He's probably not doing it because at the time I was thinking there's a chance he has Ace Jack. There's a chance he has Queens, and that's what sort of tilted me towards. Well, I guess I just have to call. It's
Yeah, I think this guy Queens maybe I could get on board with that a little bit more, assuming maybe he squeezes Queens pre because of Rotan.
true.
Um,
Yeah.
but Ace Jack, I just don't think this guy takes this line with it. I just think he check calls.
Yeah. I did make the call and was sad to see.
Yeah,
Full
and
house.
no one's surprised by it. I think if we
No.
just like auto folded flops when
Yeah.
this type of player check raised us, just folded everything that wasn't the nuts. Or like if we had a set of just say we had a set of sixes here and they had the eights instead, we can't fold a set. But if we just folded all one pairs when we get checkers by these guys, at the end of the
Yeah.
year, if we folded 100% of the time, we'd have more big blinds
Mhm.
folding than we would by
Yeah.
calling them down.
I agree, but I did mark this, like noted it as a hand that I felt was a bit of a punt just because of the player type I was against.
Yeah, definitely.
I think I could have folded turn. I think that was my opportunity because I just don't see a lot of hands where, he's barreling there and doesn't
No, but
have
I
a
think
set.
if he is check raising the 10-9 suited, he just has to barrel the turn, though, doesn't he? That's the issue.
True.
With folding the turn, is that he can still have some
Yeah.
bluffs he might give up with.
Yeah, I guess
Whereas on the
that's true.
river, we're needing this guy to either thin value bet Ace Jack or empty the clip with 10-9, and I don't think he does either very often. That's my problem with the
Yeah.
river.
That's a good point. So you're saying once you make the decision to call the flop, which you usually are going to do,
Well, yeah, but I wouldn't have been in this spot because I wouldn't have bet the flop. So
I think that's the biggest thing.
if
I
I'd have
think
been
that's the
playing
biggest
this
takeaway
pot,
from this.
like either
Yeah.
Roten would have checked, he would have raised, and I would have considered folding, or if Roten checks back, this guy just goes bet turn, I call. He bets river, I call.
Yeah.
And so
That's
I wouldn't have
a
played
way
it this
better way
way.
to play the hand in retrospect. Way better way, because in that scenario, it does make sense that he has ace jack, and I could be good.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
You know, to call down the turn and river. Once I've checked the flop and shown weakness, of course he's going to value bet top pair, top kicker twice.
I mean, the thing is,
But,
your strategy's based, even though you do have a lot of like you say, you don't see bet like a really high frequency. Yeah, I think your flop strategy, and I'm the last person to critique because I think you're better than me in general at poker, but I don't like your flop strategy very much. It seems like you seem to make a decision on the flop, and then that's it. The decision made for the rest of the hand. Then, like, because you
yeah, I
said
really don't
you
like
said more
to
than
bet
once
and
that
then
yeah, it's like if I decide I'm betting
Yeah.
the flop, that's it. It doesn't really matter what happens. I'm just gonna continue through with this plan. You know, sometimes it works brilliantly, sometimes it's really ill-fated, and you don't strike me as someone who like is that good at changing plans on the run.
That's definitely true. Like, especially with some of the hands that we looked at earlier, unless the board pairs or something, I'm pretty much going for three streets, whether it's a bluff or whether I make my hand. Like, that's just the way I'm
that makes
playing
you hard
those
to play
spots.
against because I mean, now I'm seeing a little bit under it. I can see some things I'm like, well, I don't think that's that good. But when I'm playing against you, you're fucking hard to play against, and that's the most important thing, I guess. And I'm the only person in the pool to have the luxury of having like spoke to you. I mean, obviously, I've shared some of my thoughts too, so it's not like it's been one-way traffic. But your game will still work pretty well against this pool. I just think it could work even better. You know, when you're like saying to me, you got 3,000 hands on this guy, and you weren't aware just what a nitty was. To me, that's a big flashing red light straight away. How the fuck are you not aware what a nitty is? And then when you're facing the check raise bet, and it's just like, you know, you're not really identifying that's just a fucking incredibly nutted line anyway, and it's even more nutted against this guy. And it's just like it's maybe seems like you get a little bit like one track minded, maybe.
Yeah, I definitely think that's true.
But yeah, the last thing you're gonna do is dig you out because fuck me, I've made way more embarrassing call downs, way more embarrassing bluffs. We all have.
Oh, sure.
You know, I just
But I think you're right both generally about my play and maybe being a little one-track mind or tunnel vision in certain spots.
Tunnel vision's a good way of putting it.
But then, especially in a spot like this against a player who's this you know, tight, there's just no reason to get stacked here.
No, I honestly think if I'm playing my A game, I just check forward that flop and I'm just like, whatever, mate, don't care.
I love that, and I think I'm capable of it. I just hope that in practice I can put that into play against players like this, because you just save so much in the long run.
Yeah.
And when is he ever check raising where you're going to get a lot of value? Never against this player in this
No.
spot.
When they're bluffing, you can afford to be bluffed because they're not doing it anywhere near high enough frequency. If I'm playing against you and you check raise me on this spot, I can never fold kings. If this is me, if I've got the kings and you're Nero, you know, I just have to take the line you've taken because you're too aggressive and kings is too high up in my range. But against Nero, you know, like the guy's just going to have a ridiculously boring and predictable frequency where you can just you exploit people like me and you exploit people like him by folding. I hear a lot of people saying, "Oh, you exploit nits by stealing the blind." You don't get fucking rich stealing blinds, and you don't get to steal it 100%. You know, you steal my blind and maybe long term over like 100,000 hands. You know, you win a third of it because sometimes I win the fucking pot, sometimes I 3-bet you, etc. So when it's a common cliche, it's total bullshit that you exploit nits by stealing the blinds. You don't. You exploit nits by making ridiculous tight folds to them and just not paying them off. That's how you exploit nits.
Definitely,
Just don't give them value.
You know, we all have those times where we're really in the zone and we're playing and it feels like, you know, you can't make a mistake because you're so in tune to what's going on. And when I'm in that state, I feel like I can get away from like really strong hands against players like this. But it's just like, it's hard to do that all the time, especially if your mindset is a little, you know, you just lost a big pot with aces or something, then you got kings again. Like, what? He doesn't have a full house this hand. Come on. Can't happen again.
I don't know how many tables you play, but I know if I'm 3-tabling snap, after 45 minutes or so, I can quite often be in zombie mode. If it's been an active session where there's been like lots of toing and throwing, I stay pretty present and pretty in the moment. But it's been one of those like really quite fucking dull sessions where you've never had action with your big hands, and it's just been one of those sessions where 45 minutes have gone by, you haven't played a pot that's been over 30 bigs. It's very easy to just get like a trance-like state, bored, boring. Then when a big hand comes, you're not switched on, you're not warmed up for it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So if I play one table, I play really well. Play two tables, I play okay. Play three, it's very easy to just get in like a trance-like state almost, and just get in the rhythm of folding. I often find myself sometimes I'll be playing and I'll be folding into the rhythm of the fucking beat of the music I'm listening to, because I'm in such a zombie-like fucking state. I'll like wait to fold until like a certain fucking drum beat or something, and I'm like, fucking hell, Reg, switch on or fuck off, you know. But you're like, oh, volume, I'll keep playing, you know. The pool's shit, I play like a zombie, but let's keep going when my win rate's probably negative. You know, right? We'll do one more because I can hear my wife stirring the pan. So we do one more because she always gives it to me. It's too hot, but we'll try and do it relatively efficiently. Sorry.
Yes, I wanted to show you one thing here too, since you mentioned Eastie's not your favorite.
Please be against him.
I had to show this hand where I opened on. I knew Eastie was streaming, right?
Yep.
And I was just 3-betting him every hand because I like to do that against people. I don't know, it's just fun for me.
Was this 15L or was this when he was playing 10L?
I think this was 10L, like he was doing his thing.
Right, okay, because he was playing 15L last week, wasn't he?
I'm not sure, actually. I didn't run into him at all. But of course I opened under the gun on his big blind with deuce 7. It folds around, and he 3-bets to 11. He had ace-queen off. I went and watched the stream after the fact, and I just decided to go with it. I cold 4-bet him, or 4-bet him anyway, to 23, and he ended up folding. And that felt pretty good.
That is an absolute joy. What's his VPIP and PFR there?
It's messed up. This happens to me with my poker tracker now and then. Is it when I'm playing multiple tables, it gets the tables mixed up?
Ah, right, because it looks like 9-7 from here.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not. He's somewhere around 20.
Yeah, it annoys me that he's there calling people stains and like, oh, it's stain on the game. This guy's such a fucking nit. And some of them are, but he's not exactly out there, you know, throwing moves galore himself. But I've got enough hands on Eastie now to know that he's something like a 20/16 with like a 6.5% 3-bet, which is completely fine. I have no issue with that in the slightest. You know, it's slightly looser than I am, but you don't. To me, when you play those stats, you don't get to call people names for being tight. You know,
that's a fair point. Yeah. You know what I hated about him was his mindset too. Like, oh, people are watching me, so they know how I play, so it's unfair. Like, no, not really.
No.
If they're trying to make moves on you with 7-2, you want that to happen.
Of course you do. He complains that people bum hunt him.
Yeah.
But he got a bunch of people in that pool that are playing negative EV poker against him. You know, deliberately. Yeah. On top of that, he's getting donations, he's getting sub counts, he's getting paid from AAA. You don't have any fucking right to complain about people learning how you play a little bit when there's so many positives for you. Like you say, you got your subs, you got your donations, you got the money AAA are paying you, you got the money you're making from YouTube, and you're gonna cry and whine and bitch about people seeing how you fucking play. Grow up. Just fucking. He goes on about, you know, I need to be an adult. Well, he fucking does. He needs to be an adult and grow up a little bit. To be honest with you, it's the first time I've called him out on YouTube. I didn't mind him at first, but now I just think he's a proper salty, entitled fucker, and he just needs to grow up. He's not going to do well at poker with the mindset he's currently got. He's drawing dead.
I definitely agree that like his mindset would improve. If his mindset improved, his play would improve a lot.
There's people like Benner, and you can see even there that losing patience in him sometimes. Because he's getting good advice from players who are a lot better than him, and he's just rude to them. He just cuts them off. And how Benner still has anything to do with him is fucking beyond me. If he was my friend, I'd have been told by now, you're a fucking idiot, mate. Sort it out, or leave me the fuck alone. I wouldn't be. I don't see what's in it for Benner apart from losing money backing him. You know, but you know, good luck to him.
On the other hand, I do appreciate that Eastie at least puts out content. Anybody who's putting out content, it's a good thing.
Yep, and I always watch him. You know, so I mean, I'm being a bit of a hypocrite, but I only watch him hoping he loses so I can see the salt. You know, that's the only, if I log in and he's smiling and he's got 2 stacks in front of him at 250 bigs, I'm just like, I'm not watching this today.
I'll watch another time.
But if I log in and you know, within like 2 seconds he's calling somebody a name and he's fucking like banging through his fucking keyboard pretty quick, I'm like, boom, I'm in here. Let's put the kettle on. I'm in till he finishes. Anyways, let's do this hand, sir. Then we can.
Let's do it.
We'll finish up.
Wrap it up. Yeah. So we get a pretty nice hand here in the small blind. Player opens to 2.5 under
Yeah, I'm
the
not
gun.
familiar with that guy.
Me neither, really. We hadn't played too many, but I have ace king, so there's only one thing I'm doing.
Absolutely.
Going for the 4x, and we get the
I think we
call.
can even go slightly bigger here, given how deep we are.
Yeah, like what, 12?
12, 14. I mean, we're really deep.
Yeah.
You know, we want to try
Yeah,
and like,
true.
we want to A, encourage more folds, and B, we
Yeah.
just want to like, you know, the lower SPR we can get, the better.
Do you want to fold here when you have ace king out of position?
I don't hate it.
Yeah.
You know,
okay.
because a lot of the time it's going to come down 7, 8, 3, and I'm just
Yeah.
going to not know what to fucking do this deep.
Yeah, it's tough in those spots.
Because
I think,
this depth, he should be calling 100% of his open range close to at this depth, because his range is going to be tight to begin with, and then he's going to want to defend
Yeah.
most of it.
yeah, so pretty
because
much
of how
any
deep we
pair, any suited connector, or whatever, he's probably going to be continuing.
You would think so.
Yeah, that's a good point. I could probably go a little bigger here. We get a great flop. You know, we flop top pair, top kicker.
No, he said it's a great
Um,
flop, but there's an awful lot of big blinds behind him. We don't want to get raised at any point.
Yeah. No. So what are you thinking when a flop like this comes out? How would you approach this flop with this hand? With against a fairly unknown player?
I'm just going to keep betting, and then just hope not to get raised at any point. The problem is if we go bet he calls, then river, I wouldn't have a fucking clue what to do because of how deep we are. It's a pretty it's a pretty uncomfortable spot. But I think we probably want to continue betting.
I agree,
I'd
and
probably
also-
go quite big. 'Cause what I don't want to do here is that even though he's you know he can call with worse hand, which is a good thing. I don't really want him to float very often wide here, because if he does, that means he's got intentions of fucking with me on later streets. And 200 big blinds deep in a 3-bet pot, I don't want people fucking with me. You know,
That's a really good point. Yeah, like you want to take that away from them by betting fairly large,
Yeah.
probably at least two streets here.
I don't want him floating ace-4 suited here.
Yeah,
know.
that's a good point.
Which,
Yeah, he
or
burns some
if
sort
he
of
is
draw
gonna,
and-
if he is going to float that, he's going to pay a fucking heavy price for it. So I'd be betting pretty big here. I'd be using a big size, because it's the spot where I'm just not going to have too many bluffs. I wouldn't have thought. Not on a King Jack 3 board. There's not that many bluffs. So we're going to have Queen 10 suited. Probably doesn't 3-bet. So our straight draws are going to be good shots with like Ace Queen, Ace 10 suited, I guess. So we're not going to have many bluffs. We're going to have some decent value hands, you know, and then we're going to have 2 of the sets. He's going to have 2 of them too, probably. He's probably going to have kings and jacks and 3s, or we're going to have kings and jacks. We're going to have aces, whereas he probably isn't going to have aces. We've got more ace king than him. So I'm just going to bet really big. And I don't mind if he folds, to be completely honest with you. But I'm just going to bet like upwards of 14 bigs here.
Yeah, I don't want to do too many sidetracks, but out of curiosity, let's say the big blind cold called. Does that change the way you approach a flop like this?
Yeah,
like, if there's 2 players in it, are you still going to do the same kind of strategy?
Yeah, because the big blind cold calls and he's 32-15, he's just going to be a fish, and he's going to want to bet pretty big pretty quickly and just try and I'm going to want Hippo to call and I'm going to ace buy to fuck off. Because when we see bet into Hippo and ace high in a 3-bet pot, and we're 200 bigs deep with Hippo, he has to know we're not fucking around. So if he does stay in the pot, he has to be like pretty strong himself. Whereas now, he can stay in the flop with, some more speculative stuff. Because I imagine he has the Queen 10 suited. He has like the Jack 9. He has a lot of stuff here because of how deep we are. He has a lot of stuff that's like worse than us that he's going to call with. That's going to make life difficult for us on later streets.
True. So yeah, I definitely agree with you. Go for what?
No, I don't like that.
I can't believe. I don't either. I like what you said. I'm surprised I did this.
We're inviting him to just not fold anything here.
Yeah.
Which is fine from like a value perspective, but it's not good from an out of position, very very deep perspective. But I suppose if he just calls this bet, we know there's no chance of us getting it all anyway. Yeah, but I would have just gone bigger.
I agree. I'm really surprised actually that I went with this sizing, but obviously we get the call from anything. Turns it 2 doesn't change too much. I guess backdoor hearts.
I think that's this spot now. We either go bet and just like fold if he raises, I guess, or we just start checking and hoping that he tries to make us fold something. But I think I prefer bet, and I'd like be something like I'd just go block actually. like 40%, 40%. Because if he's got pocket queens, if he's got ace jack, he's just going to go call. Don't think he's
Yeah.
going to raise very often with anything worse than ace king. He's going to have some bluffs, but he's not going to value raises with worse. So if he does raises at some point, he's going to be very polarized, and there ain't that many draws out there. So he's going to need him to be turning a made hand into a bluff, which I don't think people do very often when we block. I think they just go call. But it's already getting pretty uncomfortable because we're out of position to someone who, plays pretty wide ranges like yourself, who is very likely to be quite creative versus checks. So I know how to play this now. It's not optimal, but I would just check. I'd be in check call mode now against someone with those stats. Against you here, for example, I would just be checking and hoping you bet, and then checking and hoping you bet again, and I just get to call down, and then I hope you don't have like jacks or threes or something.
Yeah, I think against an aggressive player who's pretty likely to barrel, checking is pretty good. I actually am thinking here, like, I want some value. I don't want to check and then him check behind and I only get one street. I'm probably going to try to go for two here.
Well, no, because if we check back here, we just get to bet big on the river because we don't tell a very good story. We 3-bet pre, we've down bet the flop, check the turn, then we want to bet big river. So if he checks back a jack here, we could probably bet close to pot on the river, and he's probably going to call us because our line wouldn't make sense. I don't think we have a 3-street hand this deep very often. We needed to have king queen a lot, and we needed to, we need to call with it for 2 streets. I know how I play. This isn't optimal. This isn't advice. I know I would check here, but I think betting's probably better.
Yeah. So I go for a pretty large sizing. I think that's 2/3, somewhere around there.
Yep, looks like it.
And we get the call. And the river comes. I think, again, another blank. I don't think that really changes anything.
No.
He either had the king jack or the jacks or something the whole way, or I'm ahead.
Yeah, the only conceivable things that I've got there is like it's literally ace-5 of diamonds, ace-5 of hearts. They're the only 2 straights you can realistically, have.
But it's like you said earlier. If you're going to go for the multi-streets of value, you're folding the river to a raise. Yeah. So if he got there with that, I'm betting here and then folding reluctantly.
Yeah, I think if we bet here like anything upwards of 30 blinds, he's just not going to raise his light. I wouldn't imagine.
No, yeah, exactly.
He might even just
go pretty large.
Jack here. So I think the bigger we bet, the significantly reduces our chances of being called. And I think it doesn't reduce our chance of being raised, but it does reduce our chance of being called. So I think this feels too big to me. Because
a little optimistic to get a call here from a
we're targeting literally king queen, aren't we?
King queen, king 10, king 9, maybe. Like, we don't know how fishy this guy is. You only have a sample size of 75.
Yeah. But I think
maybe ace jack.
I think it's king 9. No, I don't think ace jack calls his size. I don't think king 9.
I don't think so either.
I think we're looking at king queen probably always has to call and hates his life, and king 10 calls if he's a stubborn bastard. But this whole thing feels too big for our hand right now for me.
Okay.
And he
does fold.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe a spot where if I went smaller, I would have got some value.
It's just a grim spot, and it's why you rarely see me playing a double stack in these games. The only time I play a double stack is if there's a fish with a big stack. If it's just other regs with the 200 blind stacks, I'm not fucking interested.
I am. Well, give me 400 against 400. I'll play it.
No. I'm rat holing like a little bitch. Because the problem is, if you're playing a 400 big blind versus if you're playing an 800 big blind pot, it's just a pure cooler, and it's just are you on the right side of it or not? No one's putting 400 bigs in without winning, unless it's a cooler. So then it's just like it's going to be set over set, or it's going to be, you're going to get all the money on the turn with the monster, and they're going to suck out, or vice versa. You're never going to get.
There's a couple players that will. I don't like that Let's Go K or Let's Gawk.
Yeah, but he rarely plays that fucking deep. That fucker's always sat at like fucking 40 to 70 bigs. It's very,
really?
very rare. Well, I don't see him getting himself deep too often. Yeah, there are some spewers in there, and there's definitely on a Friday and Saturday night. There's some UK guys. Thank you, Dorno. My tea's just been presented to me, and there's some UK guys who are absolutely capable of punting it off at 150 and 200. But I think 400 is different gravy. I think if you're 400 deep with people, 400 bigs deep, it's just going to be nuts versus nuts, and then you just want to make sure you've got the nuts and not the second nuts in those spots.
Yeah, coolers.
But anyway, sir, it's been an absolute pleasure. I am now going to shoot
Absolutely, it
off.
has been.
And yeah, stay in touch, please, because you're not likely to see me in that pool very often. Because like I said, I've just got some extra work picking up. I'm going to be like dialing back my poker a little bit. But
Okay.
do stay in touch. If you'd want to do this again, just behind you got us interesting, and you just want like a niche perspective, and we don't have to record it. We could just have a chat, mate. You know, I don't think that I can't be asked to do it. You know, if you just say, "Oh, Reg, have you got half an hour?" Look at a few answer me. I'm like, "Yeah, mate, yeah, whatever." It doesn't have to be on the thing of making it. I'm happy if if this is the only video we ever make. I don't care. But I like talking to people who offer me a different perspective on poker. So if you just want to like look at some hands again in future, and I'll do the same with you. We don't have to be for videos because I'm not that asked about YouTube at the minute. But yeah, don't be a stranger is what I'm saying, because I've really enjoyed this.
Likewise, yeah, I really appreciate having the other perspective and just to be able to talk through some hands. Like even in this session, I've learned a lot, so I really appreciate it, and
Yeah,
hope we can do it again soon.
it's been a lot of fun. Yeah, well, that you'll be in charge of that because I don't like harassing people. But yeah, if you message me, I'm not saying I'll say yeah, let's do it now, but I'm sure video or no video, I'll be more than happy to set up and have a chat with you because I think it's really interesting. But thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Reggie. I appreciate it too, and I'll be in touch.